Okay, welcome back. We had a very interesting conversation with a gentleman new to the program last Friday. He is Charlie Bluehawk, and the product, which is not what we're here to talk about in full this hour, the product is Justice Caps, and I'm very interested to get my own, put it through its paces, find out how well it works. It looks like it is one of the most important steps toward maintaining what's left of our constitutional right to privacy that I've seen in a long, long time. You know the story. I'm sure most all of you. You've seen the banner. The idea, of course, is you wear a good-looking baseball-type cap, and there are LED lights, 9 of them, under the bill of the cap in the front. And there are 3 little AAA batteries, and they turn the lights on. And the lights apparently interfere with digital cam observation wherever you go. So you can choose who sees you when, at least in terms of the government surveillance freaks. And that's what they are, if not criminals, because it is criminal to invade someone's privacy, in my view. Charlie, welcome back to the program.
Thank you very much, sir. Happy to be here.
We talked last time about your background a little bit, and I don't want to do this as your life, but you run in circles, and Charlie sent me a raft of emails. During his last visit, you may remember him using the word Mandarin, which means lord or some high position of control, a Mandarin position, a Mandarin, a noun. These are the people who actually, as I wrote in the description, grease the wheels of evil that comes from far above them, maybe even off this dimension. Who knows? Yes, there is a genetic disposition in this species to be violent and to kill, and yes, frankly, I'd like to see that. If they're going to mess with corn, cottonseed, canola, sugar beets, and everything else, why can't they pull this killer gene out of people? Well, the answer is they could if they wanted to. But anyway, be that as it may, Charlie has had a lifetime of experience moving amongst people to whom human life means very little. If, in fact, it's just a convenience or it's a mechanism by which to achieve their goals and their ends, which usually are greed, lust, power. And how much is too much? In those arenas, there is no such thing as too much. Who are the Mandarin class on this planet? And they're certainly not confined to any one continent, country, society, social grouping. Give us a broad definition, Charlie. And how many years have you been involved with these people? They're often deal makers, they're hustlers, they're international financiers, they're arms traders, they're human flesh traders, the whole works. Tell us more about these people.
Well, actually, I've pretty much been involved with them my whole life. My original family, whoever they were, and I have few memories of them. My only recollections of them is they pretty much broke all the bones in my body before the age of 5. And
quite literally. He's not joking.
Yeah. No, I learned a long time ago never to joke on the radio, so because people never know. We go out for a coffee, sure, we'll tell jokes. But no, they pretty much broke every bone in my body. And apparently I was no longer amusing at that point. Mm-hmm. And somehow, and I still, I'm 54 years old. I could not tell you what the specific details were, but they left me with this family of basically street thugs. I grew up with the servants of the masters. Mm-hmm. And these are the people who carry out the end orders of the masters. These are the murderers, the assassins, the CIA, the military. One guy was used to be the president of General Motors. Another guy owned one of the 7 top studios in Hollywood. Huh. They regularly did business trading, actually providing young girls to mainstream headline entertainers in Vegas.
Right. Well, they hand them around like candy bars.
Yeah. Oh, yes, absolutely. And the same thing goes, there were subcontinent Indian, Mandarin class, Brahmin class doctors, drug dealers, Iranian drug dealers. And I was listening to your news just now.
Not my news, and I want to wash my hands and do a Pontius Pilate for most of it because it's just cheap product. I'm not proud of it.
Yeah, some of the stories were interesting, and I had a flash there for a second. They had for a while a fixed base operation, a flight training school in Fullerton Airport in California. And all of their connections were military. All the connections these guys made were military. And from the military, you got into the CIA, you got into the mafia, whether it was the Jewish mafia or the Italian mafia.
Right.
I remember one big fat guy. He looked like he was right out of the Sopranos TV show. He was sitting there chuckling one day, telling the boys, the two homers that were the connection with the gang that I was living with. He was chuckling. He was just having a great time. He thought it was the greatest joke in the world. They had sponsored an anti-gun bill in some little town somewhere, and the gun bill had passed. And now it was going to be really easy pickings. They could go in, they could rob, they could rape, they could steal, they could take over the town because nobody had a gun.
Right.
And these people are absolute, utter cowards. They are cowards. The idea of fighting fair does not enter into the scenario at all. And they are simply a reflection of their masters, the mandarins, and the mandarins are a reflection of the true masters. And I have to admit that while the two homers, the boys, served their masters, they were never touched. They were never convicted, and they were never even accused of dealing with children or laundering money. They did operations for Dwight David Eisenhower when he was the president. These guys were really old. These were end of the World War II veterans. And to put it into context, the younger of the two homers, he was in the glider service in World War II.
Oh.
And he was such a coward. Apparently, there's an old joke that the purpose of the United States Army Air Corps gliders was to crash through as many buildings before exploding as possible.
These were the gliders that were supposed to land the D-Day troops, among others, behind enemy lines.
Disaster.
Mm-hmm.
The whole program was a disaster.
Yeah, it didn't work well. You're right.
No, it didn't. No, that's why you don't really hear a lot of stories about it, because not a lot of the guys survived. But this younger Homer survived. Somehow, this absolute coward became a captain. And well, actually, both of them did. One became a ferry pilot, so he didn't do anything really. And the younger Homer became a captain in the Army Air Corps, the gliders.
Mm-hmm.
And he was about I don't know anything about the military, platoons, squads, whatever. But he was about to lead his men into a fight where they knew they were all going to die. They knew it. And they decided that their last act on this earth was not to be led into battle by a coward. So they actually tried to kill him. And the thing about cowards is they know when the jig is up. And so this coward was running out of the barracks while his men were trying to kill him. So they got him in the foot. So he retired as a captain on benefit because his own men tried to kill him. This is the quality of people we're talking about.
Well, what you're talking about is the way the world operates now. And I don't care what country or culture you're in. This kind of depravity. And it's not just sexual depravity. There are many kinds of it. It's the way it's done now. It's all about getting something on somebody else, which is how the politicians are controlled, of course. There's a dossier on each one of them. They're either set up or otherwise tricked into a situation where they're videotaped, whatever. There's so many things. It's control. It's very simple. It's not a problem. And it's been done forever. Probably in the times of Julius Caesar, they were doing the same kinds of things to people. Nothing new.
Yeah, I mean, we could get esoteric on it, but, we're trying to stay within the realm of, what I can tell you with my own eyes I've seen. And when I was little, I was a whipped dog. I was a beaten animal. I learned to take a punch at a very early age because I knew that if they even suspected that the neighbors had heard me cry out, they would have killed me. But what I saw when I was little, I saw whomever they were, the masters, do things, and I could equate it to if you take 3 steps forward, then you go hide. And they waited for us to respond. And mostly, we responded, but we only knocked them back 2 steps. And every time, they would hide. Every time, wait for us to say no.
And that's how they do it. It's called ratcheting. Interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Very good. We'll be right back. I have a question about the justice cap that someone sent in. It raises a good point, and it's an interesting idea. And we'll be right back with Charlie Bluehawk. Do take a look at the Justice Cap's banner, and we're going to put. We're still working on this, but I think we're getting closer, Charlie. Putting the other logo on there.
You got it.
All right. We're hoping to have Rense.com on the Justice Caps very soon, and that's going to be a lot of fun. Okay, be right back. Okay, I'm back with Charlie Bluehawk. Charlie, do you have any kind of a background, by the way, in astronomy? Were you at a very famous institution in Southern California in the sciences at all?
I was indeed. I was at NASA for 5 years under a Raytheon contract.
Huh, interesting. Okay, now you're in Czechoslovakia, though.
Yeah.
All right. Easy
well, I
jump.
stopped off in New Zealand for 3 years, yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, now, the idea of maintaining our freedom from intrusion and surveillance is obviously something that merits a lot of consideration and talk. We have also the argument about gun ban. Take the guns away so nobody can do anything bad. Well, we know the criminals will always have guns, and there'll be a huge black market of guns immediately. Well, on the flip side of that, the justice cap prevents the government from looking at you or me or anyone else, but it could also be used by the criminal class. There's nothing we can do that. It can't do anything about it.
No. This is the ultimate act of defiance, whether for good or for evil. I personally, for example, know that television can be a force for good, because when I was a small child, the only place I saw people being kind to each other, the only place I saw people being good because it was the right thing to do, was a TV show called Star Trek. That's the only place I ever saw anything human in my life as a child. So I personally know that television can be used as a force of good. I personally know that a gun, particularly a shotgun, is very useful when someone wants to break into your house. Just the sound of going.
By the way, that's not a joke. There have been people who actually have just had recorders with that sound of racking and loading a 12-gauge shotgun a couple times.
Yes.
As a deterrent. No, they actually have. People come in, they hit an infrared beam, and the recorder plays the sound of a 12-gauge locking and again loading. It was an interesting development. That was years ago, but.
Yeah, I love that idea. That's why I used to have a shotgun out in the desert, because it was just me and the rattlesnakes and the drug dealers and the psychopaths and the arms dealers flying flights of drugs and weapons into this little airport in the middle of nowhere at all hours of the night. And I just wanted the sound of the shotgun. I didn't want to shoot anybody.
Sure.
But I wanted that sound. But I'll tell you right now, I've been in the room with mafia guys who were also CIA guys bragging and boasting that they got another gun law passed, which means it was open season on us.
Correct.
So,
yeah, look at Australia most recently. Their crime rate is going, it's spiking right up. It happens every time. It's not a surprise. Not a surprise.
It seems to be a surprise to a lot of people, which worries me. But on the other hand,
a lot of people don't think anymore, and we know that. And it's It's a tragic situation, only getting worse, because they're not supposed to think anymore. That's not the game.
They're not. I told you last week I'd written 5 books. Actually, I'd written 11. I'd written one set of 5 books that people ignored, which I self-published on Amazon. By the time I had gotten around to recording about 100 hours of audio for the second set of 5 books and transcribed some of it, I had the life knocked out of me because, firstly, books, there's so many books you can't get out there unless you've got a lot of money. 2, nobody reads.
And that is diminishing all the time. You have Kindle, okay, the notebooks, and that is, in a way, kind of the only hope for reading anymore. Yeah. No one's going to pick up a book. They'll pick up their little iPad and their laptop, whatever, and they'll read. And that's good. Yeah. It's all changed. It's all changed. It's like radio has changed. Radio is nothing like it was 15, 20 years ago. The standalone stations have been blown away. It's all internet. It's all digital, digitized, worldwide, forever, archived right now sound, just like our network here. We even have our own, at Rense Radio, the network, we have our own dedicated server just for iPhones, iPads, and smartphones and so forth. That's the demand. So. Yes.
You've got to keep up. You have to. You have no choice.
Yeah, it's like holding a tiger by the tail, too. It is, it is so damn fast now. It's unreal.
Yeah, I mean, I've been in IT for, starting in 1985. In fact, at NASA, that place we don't talk about, I had 7 different jobs and I was stationed at Caltech at the IPAC building, Infrared Processing and Analysis Center. And I was on the Certus project, Space Infrared Telescope Facility, which finally launched, became Spitzer. And I tell you, I would do anything not to go up to JPL. It was the creepiest place in the world I've ever been. But I got stuck up there.
Caltech, JPL, gave you the creeps.
Yeah. Caltech is, you know what? Caltech didn't because it was so old and run down. And it was built like in the 1930s, and since then they really haven't done much with it. Mm-hmm. But JPL, creepy 1960s kind of a campus thing. And the only life up at the lab, out of 27,000 people, is there are 2 herds of deer that come down from the mountains and sort of make themselves at home in the quad. That's kind of cool. Mm-hmm. But other than that, no, I always dreaded going to the lab. To me, it was just so darn creepy and lifeless that I would have done anything not to go up there.
Is this part of the scientific academia nowadays? It is devoid of humanity. These are machines walking around in loafers.
Well,
what's the deal? How would you describe it further? I want to get a picture.
Well, when I was a kid, like I said, Star Trek and the landing on the moon and everything, which turns out, as we know, Mr. J. Wagner pointed out.
Well, we got a lot of Stanley Kubrick involved with some of that footage, apparently. Yeah. We couldn't afford to blow it. We could not afford not to succeed, so they backed it, apparently, with footage overseen and produced by Stanley Kubrick to make damn sure we could at least present that we did what we said we were doing. It was the stakes were too big. We couldn't take a chance. So that's understandable.
And Stanley left out a lot of things that on reflection today are so glaring you wonder how he missed it, but they're so obvious it's painful.
Maybe he did it on purpose so his legacy would be one of not having sold out completely, too. I don't know.
He'd have to, because it's obvious beyond belief when someone points it out to you.
Yeah, all right. Hold on a sec, Charlie. We'll come right back.
We're back up and running. That was really weird. For those of you on the Internet or anywhere on the stations that are carrying this, as soon as I hit the brake, right then at the network, everything fried. The board went, there were sparks in the studio. The backup battery was destroyed. So, and we have safety precautions to prevent any kind of a spike overload like that. It would be easy for me to say we were attacked. I don't know. But Charlie back on as well. So we'll see what happens here. But that they say they've never seen anything like it. Not just the power spike, something else. What it was, who knows? But there are folks out there that don't like this program. Now, I'm not saying that they did it on purpose, or jump into crazy conspiracy land, but unprecedented, unusual things do happen, and that's the name of the game. Are you back there, Charlie?
Well, I'm on my backup computer. How's the sound?
You're good enough.
Okay.
Yeah, you're fine. So,
anyway, you asked. Mm-hmm.
Go ahead. No, I'd go on where you were, because we had a tremendous jolt of something at the network there, right in the studio. Sparks flying, everything.
My goodness. Well, you died completely on my end. I have no idea what had happened.
No, I didn't either. But we're working on it. We're trying to get everything put back to the way it was if we can. We don't know. This was an enormous hit of something, and we hope we didn't lose any equipment. We're going through diagnostics right now. So.
Is everybody okay?
Yes.
Oh, okay, good. That's
we're fine, but we have, surge protection and all that, but it overrode all of it. So whatever it was very weird.
Welcome to my world, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, as long as you're okay, yeah, because, you just died here. I mean, Skype is not that good, but, oh, my goodness, you just died on this end. I have no idea. So I went back to my old Mac laptop, which is near death anyway, but it'll work for a while.
Very good. No, we're okay. Always depend. Even Macs and their last legs are better than PCs out of the box. That's my view.
Especially when they're not in check. Yes.
Yeah. I just got an email from somebody. I want a Rense.com justice cap. So. Strangely
enough, those will be available very, very soon.
Well, that's fun. I've always wanted to have cap. People have asked for caps and T-shirts for years and years. So.
Well, right. We'll have you capped soon, and then we've got another completely different product, same idea, same concept, new website. In fact, we're having a big conference about it on Monday for the new website, and all the new artwork for the new packaging. So, yeah, this is all a good thing.
Right. Well, we assume everyone can hear us now. Somebody sent me some emails saying, oh, good, okay, we're back up and running.
Oh, good.
All right.
Sort of, kind of.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't know what happened, but don't jump to conspiracy conclusions as things happen.
No.
But interesting timing. Wasn't in the middle of a sentence. It was right perfect. They were at least considerate enough, the gods, to make it happen at the break. So there we go. There you are. All right.
Well, you were asking me about the deadness at JPL. And the reality is, actually, this not 2 hours ago, I got an email from a friend who's the senior scientist on the Cassini project at JPL. Mm-hmm. Nice Brazilian lady. Wanted to see if I was still breathing. Mm-hmm. There are lovely people there, but the truth of the matter is NASA's just a lie. I mean, when I was a kid, NASA to me with Star Trek seemed to be a scientist, you had to have the most open mind in the world. Mm-hmm. But after 5 years at NASA, it's very, very apparent that they are just a marketing division of the military. To this day, for example, NASA has never once launched any of its own vehicles, ever. Whenever you see the rockets being assembled in the assembly building, they put them on a little tractor thing that gets 2 miles every 5 or 6 days. Mm-hmm. But if you watch really close, as they're moving it, they go through a gate, through a fence. Mm-hmm. That's where the military is. Yeah. NASA hands off the rocket to the military. Military takes control. Military launches it. Military controls the whole mission. And whenever you see pictures of anybody in flight control at NASA, they're not doing anything.
They never look like they're doing much, but they're...
No.
I don't know.
They're never doing anything. I mean, when we launched CERTIF, the Space Infrared Telescope Facility, I was one of my 7 jobs is I was in charge of audio video for the IPAC building.
Yeah.
And so we got the audio, the video feed. I think I managed to save some stuff. but you could tell that we had no control over it at all.
Yeah. By the way, if anyone just joined us, Charlie, I am on my telephone here in my studio, so I'm on that telephone line. Okay, wow. And that's what we're doing. All right, go ahead, please.
Yeah. So in the 5 years I was there, I mean, there's this belief that NASA hires only the best and the brightest. Well, I'm sorry, they're my friends, but I have to tell you that these are not the best and the brightest that God created. And they, as a scientist, particularly as an astronomer, there's only certain places you can work, and they're all the government. You can either work for the government directly.
Right. Hold, Charlie, hold on right there if you would. We've got to take a break. We'll come right back.
Okay, nice music. I want to commend Brett and the folks at the network. They just pulled off a miracle and did a major workaround and got us back up. I don't know what happened, but we're back on our regular broadcast line here. And Charlie is overseas, and he's standing by as well. All right, Charlie, onward. I can't remember where we were. I've been dealing with too many things here.
We were at where can a
you were talking about NASA and the military. I got something to say about that. Now, yeah. This is anecdotal, but my father was director of public relations for McDonnell Douglas Missiles and Space Corporation for about 15 years, a long time. And he would go to Vandenberg and the Cape for launches, which used the hardware that McDonnell Douglas built. He met von Braun and all of them. Chris Kraft and I can't remember all the names, but anyway, he told me, he said, I can't talk about all this, but I'll tell you this much. Every launch, basically every launch, is military. Don't ever forget it.
Yes. Yeah, Dr. Linda emailed me one day. I was part of another one of my jobs was education and public outreach. And Dr. Linda emailed me and said, Charlie, since we're, trying to get people up on the truth of what we actually do here, shouldn't we tell them that we never launch anything? It's always the military. And I wrote back, well, Dr. Linda, I think you have a family that you need to feed. And there's only certain places you can work. You can work for the government. You can work for a university with a government contract, or you can work for a company with a grant from the government. And unless you do exactly what the government tells you to do, you will be working at McDonald's. And so Dr. Linden never brought
doing subterranean groundwork for Forest Lawn.
Oh, yeah, pretty much, yeah. I never saw any of that. Basically, the folks I was, honestly, were just too, and I'm sorry to say this, guys, just too dumb and down the food chain. For example, if you're a foreigner working at NASA as a scientist, you cannot even have a NASA laptop. You got to get your own. You cannot, after you file a report, you give it to your manager. You're no longer allowed to look at your own work because you're a foreigner. And the way they treated foreigners was horrifying, but also there were no postdocs coming out of the U.S. educational system. So they were in a panic. They were going, where are we going to get more people? We have to start pushing science. So I'm sitting there in the meeting. I put up my hand and I say, well, maybe first we should teach people how to read and write. I was not universally popular. But
well, can't win them all.
You really can't. But, you can look my name up, Charlie Bluehawk, as NASA, Charlie Bluehawk AAS, which is the American Astronomical Society. I'm still up there all over the place. We even did.
Right. Well, I was going to say one thing that has always bothered me about NASA, the People's Space Program, is the forever contract of MSSS. Malin Space Sciences Systems owns literally everything you see that comes from a NASA mission. They own it to the extent that they get the download, they go through the actual imagery, they decide what will be released and in what format it'll be released, and if there is any tampering, and I'm not saying there is, I can't prove it, but we have seen very strange things over the years. If there is any tampering, it comes from Malin Space Sciences. If there is an agenda, it's there. So, as you know,
I'll have to argue with you on that one because when Maitland at one point, I was with NASA from 1999 to 2004, and during that period, they released like 250,000 images of Mars.
Right.
And my friend up at the lab library, where they stamp a little stamp on it with the number, she said, "Charlie, you got to look at these." And she was sending me untouched images from the lab of Mars. And so we're sitting there in my Raytheon office. I said, come over and look at this. I don't believe this. And we're looking at trees. We're looking at rivers. We're looking at streams.
Now, Charlie, hold on, Charlie. You're telling us what you yourself witnessed. You saw this.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, this goes back to my point. I said I cannot prove it, but we've seen things that are very concerning. Now, you're telling us you've seen pictures, and you worked for NASA for 5 years, of trees and lakes and streams on Mars.
Yeah, the trees were kind of interesting. Imagine a big conifer tree shoved down in the middle and made squat. That's
like a banyan or something. Yeah, we've seen these. They're real weird. They're apparently very wide and
very big.
Yeah.
Very big.
Now, you saw these photos in what state? Right after they were downloaded to MSSS, or where were they on the chain?
Well, Maitland sent them to the lab at the NASA library, and I was down in Pasadena in my office at Raytheon, and I actually copied all of these on the CD. Unfortunately, most of my life was left behind in New Zealand. That's another tragedy of the world. So I don't have them anymore. I've got a few things left. But yeah, she just emailed them to me and says, "You've got to look at this. This stuff's great." And so I called everybody over from the office, and we're all standing around my big screen of my monitor going, "What the hell is that? What the hell is that?" The one that really got us, besides the rivers and the trees and things, was that glass tube that's lying on the surface, and they say is a volcanic tube.
Yeah, lava tube. Yeah.
Yeah, and we're looking at. I mean, that was up on my monitor for days, and we would stare at it and say, "How is that possible?" And this followed something that happened. I don't remember if it was before or after, but I asked my friend, and I shouldn't even say his name. He'd been at the lab for like 30 years, and he designed the cameras on a couple of the Mars landers from many, many, many years ago. When I can guarantee you they actually went to Mars. This latest thing, I can't even tell if it is on Mars or not. But he told me, I said, what color is the sky on Mars? I mean, really? I mean, you built the camera, you loaded the camera on the spaceship, and if you ever have a chance to go to JPL, you can, go to the assembly room and watch them build spaceships. Huh. It's like they're putting together Tinker Toys.
Right.
It's really.
Well, I've heard about this. Now, another question about these images. Look, for better or worse, I'm in your corner on this. I think there's an awful lot of stuff on Mars that we haven't been able to see. That's just my opinion. Were these were processed images or unprocessed raw data that you were seeing? You can't really make the raw data would be almost unintelligible, I would think. These were processed images?
All I know is they came directly from the NASA library with the NASA stamp on it. And at that point, there were trees, there were rivers.
Interesting. All right. But it wouldn't surprise me in the least. Joseph Skipper and his Mars Anomaly Research website has presented, I guess, a small smattering of these processed images, and people can look at them and say, "Nah, that's just Rorschach stuff you're seeing. You're making stuff up. But go ahead.
These cameras, these images, the cameras they have are so clear and so crystal sharp that whenever I see an image that's foggy from NASA, I go, no. I knew the guys who built these cameras.
Well, that's what I was talking about. There have been released imagery that clearly, on one image will be ultra sharp, and an image from the same basic batch will be smudgy, and they call it soft focus and whatever.
Yeah. No. I spent most of my life in Photoshop. I personally redesigned the nature of the universe 3 times because a scientist didn't like how his image came off the satellite. So no.
Right.
I mean, my friend who built the camera, who sent it to Mars, 20 years ago.
You knew the guy that built the camera.
Well, this is a guy who built a camera years and years ago, not Maitland. This is pre-Maitland, I guess. I didn't get into the politics of it, but I knew the guy who designed the camera, built the camera, put it on the lander, and the lander actually went to Mars.
Was this Viking?
And I said, I don't remember. There was so many projects that went to Mars when I was there, I lost count.
Okay.
I can look it up for you.
But just for the record, you have seen refined, crystal clear, sharp pictures of water and vegetation and trees on Mars.
Yeah. Yes.
All right.
And if there is a miracle, if there is a God and she's listening, some of my personal belongings survived storage in New Zealand.
Mm-hmm.
And if I can ever get them here, I have CDs and DVDs of my 5 years at NASA. I made backup copies every week.
All right. Well, I hope that you've got backup copies elsewhere, Charlie, because they're going to track down your storage in New Zealand.
Well, New Zealand is a totally different subject. New Zealand is the world's biggest social engineering open-air laboratory.
Well, I'm not surprised that, yes, it's been controlled. It's we know who's doing it.
Oh, yeah. I saw it with my own eyes. I was there for 3 years. But the point, I can't let the point about the lander camera guy go. I said, what color is the sky on Mars really? Mm-hmm. And he says, Charlie, you have Photoshop. I said, yeah. Do you know that every time we put a camera on a lander, we put in a color chart, a color calibration chart on the lander so the camera can color calibrate? I said, yes. He said, go look. And he walked away. I went back to my office. I pulled out one of the mission pictures of his because I knew it would be real. Mm-hmm. I put it into my Photoshop. I adjusted the color balance. The sky on Mars is blue.
Right. Yeah. I remember when that was first disclosed, they tried to pass it off as a dusty-looking, light tannish red. But it's a blue sky. The blue sky.
Blue.
Okay. Very good to talk to you. Let's do it again. This is fun. Obviously, you have a great deal more to discuss and share, but let's remind people that Charlie is in Europe, and we're working on launching this product. And I can't wait to get mine and put it through its paces. JusticeCaps.com, JusticeCaps.com. It could be a huge success, and should be in this country, where human rights ought to be number one. Thanks, Charlie. Good conversation. In fact, better than that, and we'll do it again.
That would be great. Take care, my friend. Thank you.
All right. Good night.
Good night.
Charlie Bluehawk. And that was an interesting hour. Okay, we'll be back with more in just a few.